In screaming woods and empty rooms, or gloomy vaults and sunken tombs, where monks and nuns in dust decay, and shadows dance at close of day. Where death holds life in grim embrace, its lines etched on the sinner's face. Where'er the march of time is flaunted, voices cry, this place is haunted.
Hello everybody,
Hey everyone, it's good to have you all again.
and welcome back to A Pair of Banshees, the podcast, where today we'll be talking about university ghosts. We always record, as we noticed, it's like, 3 minutes? 3 minutes to midnight now. We're always recording at the witching hour at midnight or at like 3 or 4 a.m. So at least it's more of an acceptable time to record now, but it's just amusing, isn't it? We always wait till the bloody last minute.
And again, we've been talking since 4 o'clock.
Since 4 o'clock today.
Yeah.
We just have so much to talk about, as we said. So anyway, our bad timing aside, welcome to episode 6. This is, yes, Haunted Irish Universities. It was a tricky one to find stuff about. But yeah, thank you for joining us for another episode. I hope everyone who's been listening to us all over Ireland and in our friends groups, and to those, hello to you outside of Ireland listening. Thank you for joining us on this new journey so far during this quarantine, and we hope you enjoy what we're making and enjoy listening to us talk about all things spooky.
It's quite exciting. It's episode 6, so that means we've been doing this for 6 weeks.
That's pretty cool.
Isn't it? I think that's pretty cool. We've gotten to, episode 6. Was it 3 weeks to like make something a habit, and now we're twice that in? I think that's fine. Yeah.
Did a thing, Sarah. We did a thing.
Did a thing during quarantine. If we fail at everything else, we
at
can
least this is a thing.
Yeah. We can compare everything that we do to this.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I've been thinking that I haven't been productive, but then people are kind of like, but the podcast.
I know. Yeah. And we put so much pressure on ourselves to be productive, but I'm really glad that we have started this.
Me too. Obviously, it's nice, and it's nice to feel like, we're researching for a purpose, or whoever is listening to us. It's not that many yet, but
we're growing.
Yeah, we're growing. So thanks to everybody.
It's emotional.
But yeah, don't forget that you can find us on all social media, on Instagram at A Pair of Banshees. We're on YouTube, where we have our episodes up too for those who can't access them on things like Spotify and whatever else. And we're on Facebook, where we have an official page and also a group where you can join to discuss and share things, which is just called Pair of Banshees. And we have an email where you can email us your stories and experiences, or maybe things you want us to talk about or share, or look into, or basically whatever you want to share with us. Please do email us at pairofbanshees@gmail.com.
Particularly now, because as we said, this episode is Haunted Irish Universities. We want to know your stories. We've had such difficulty researching on this
seriously
topic, and it's because it's like just because something isn't written down doesn't mean it didn't happen or that it's not valid. Someone's experience is their own experience. And whenever you talk to somebody, there's always an urban legend on a campus. And yet it's so hard to find them on the internet. People will say, oh yeah, I heard this and I heard that about my campus. But then you go research it and it's like there's nothing written about it.
There was nothing. We had such difficulty because the amount of campuses we do have, and which we will explain, we'll talk about it as we go into the episode further in. But some places might have had a really difficult or dark history, and yet there's absolutely no documentation whatsoever about any kind of activity or paranormal history or experiences or like anything. Some campuses had literally zero information. We couldn't find anything on it. So this is why we advocate people to document stuff, share their experiences. You know, it's important to get the stuff down.
Yeah, and even on social media, that there's kind of like, I don't know, like a reluctance to kind of say your campus is haunted. Yeah, everyone can talk about when we had the clowns going around, you know, running around UCD. Do you remember? Like, yeah, that like we're okay
It's like
talking
a
about
worldwide phenomenon, sure, like the scary clowns popping up everywhere.
I know, because I remember leaving the library late at night and thinking, what do I do if I see a clown between my walk from the library to the bus stop?
I would be
because it is, you know,
but most other people wouldn't, you know.
I know, but like, I think I would run. I don't know.
I mean, at night, yeah, like, it would be pretty terrifying. I mean, especially the UCD campus at night. It's a giant, stony, scary, dark campus. Yeah.
I think they'll probably like if I'm leaving the campus during exam season, it's probably like around after 11 at night. Yeah. And I see a clown, I'm just like, don't talk to me. Just don't even look. I'm tired. Like, I'm not dealing with your shit. I'm after reading Sing for the past 10 hours. Like, just leave me alone. Yeah.
Stop. Oh, I'm getting triggered.
I know, yeah.
Reading Sing for 10 hours. No.
Sing wasn't even that bad. Let's talk real stuff. Let's talk Chaucer.
Stop.
Yeah. It's like, clown have no effect on me after reading Chaucer for a few hours. Go away. Yeah.
For me, it was Dickens. Dickens is far worse than Chaucer to me. No offense to all those who actually, you know, are Chaucer, Dickens, or Sing fans. We apologize.
Yeah. We did spend years studying this. I feel like we're allowed to say this kind of stuff.
I mean, yeah, if you're coming at it from a critical point of view, you know, we're allowed to criticize literature we don't like.
Yeah. This is what we train to do. Anyway, back to our universities. Yeah, so please, if there is any stories that you have or that you know of, because like I think the two big campuses that everyone kind of thinks of is like UCD and Trinity, and then like the ITs around the country feel quite left out, I think, when it comes to like urban legends and like how they're represented like on social media and the conversation around like college versus college. You know, like it's because when you research about these campuses, there is nothing on it except like
nothing.
It's built, it's funding, you know, the statistics. Like we want to hear the juicy stories that are hidden in the crevices that don't want to be like revealed, but yet are dying to be told. You know, like we want that. So if you hear about them and you know that there's urban legends or rumors or myths, even something like don't walk on the grass, otherwise it brings you bad luck. Put it out there. Send it in to us. Let us put it out there. If you don't want to put it on your social media.
Let us be the weirdos that collect the local and oral folklore, right?
Yeah, get territorial about your colleges, because I know we certainly were.
It's ridiculous, but it is, I don't know, we were talking about this. When I was a student at UCD, I did feel that a certain, like, it's nice to be, you know, part of something so big, and you do get very, like, oh yeah, you know, what Trinners are like, you know, UCD versus Trinity, you know what I mean? Yeah. No offense to my Trinity friends and whatnot, you know, but it's just like a thing. It's just like in the air, you know?
Yeah. Like I was saying to Jenny, like walking through Trinity with your UCD scarf on, thinking you're freaking badass. Like, no,
I'm a rebel. Look at me go. Like, there was something rebellious to it, or like just even standing. I remember the first week or whatever, you know, in first year, I wore my like UCD scarf that I got at the like induction, you know, at every, you know, you're wearing it on the way to college at the bus stops, and you know everybody's going to college, so like all the other colleges see you in your stupid yellow and blue UCD scarf, you know. I thought it was so cool.
I know, isn't it mad? Like you get so like, I wear my college with pride on me, you know. So why don't we wear our ghost stories, our college ghost stories and our college urban legends?
Seriously though, because it's so interesting. Like me and Sarah talking about, yeah, like in UCD there's a legend. The urban legends are, for example, like that, you know, all the stairs the campus is supposed to be built to prevent riots, whatever that means. But we all heard this from someone when we started. It's just like a rumor that's spread around. It's like, oh yeah, you see those giant stone blocks, and we have these kind of these stony roofs, kind of to help to protect you from the rain as you walk along the campus. You know, a lot of the buildings are stony with these very giant steps, which for me as a very short person, that you have to stride up, jump up, you know. So, and then for me as a very short person with short legs, those were always a problem. And you wonder, why the hell is this the way the steps are? And people just be like, oh, it's to prevent riots, things like that. It's so interesting to hear these things from all other campuses. And because, again, it's so hard to find things, information about campuses outside of Dublin, because there is that, can you say bias towards Dublin universities? But it's like there's such a central focus on the big universities and the Dublin universities that there's no focus and the other ones around the country are left out, It's like they're not valid because they're not in the bloody capital city.
Pretty much. But also, like, if you look up, say if you type into Google haunted universities, the amount of American universities, and it's like, America has them. America has ghost stories and urban legends attached to their campuses. Our history with some of our colleges is so old. Like, you're telling me there's no ghosts? You're telling me there's no, like, myth or legend or rumor or story attached to, like, that building? I find that hard to believe.
I find it hard to believe. So many of these buildings are from, like, the 1700s, 1800s. You're telling me there's not a single bloody thing. That's what I think. So it's just, it was baffling. We dug so hard and came up with what we came up with, but we were quite disappointed. It was so hard to find anything on a lot of the campuses, on a lot of the colleges.
Yeah. So please forgive us with that if we don't call out your campus, but we've done our best to collect information from campuses all over the country. I think we have, like, for what we have, it's a good variety. It's not just Dublin-based campuses. It's not just university campuses. It's not just public campuses. It's a nice variety.
But we do have a lot of. So before we go into our list of 8 campuses, we want to acknowledge buildings or campuses or colleges with a sort of dark past that we think that it's impossible that there wouldn't be any paranormal activity at these campuses. Whatsoever, but we couldn't find any information whatsoever about these.
So our first one is to anyone out there that is studying in Letterfrack, which is a campus in Connemara in County Galway. It's part of the GMIT campus, and it's where you would go to, say, study woodwork if you wanted to be a woodwork teacher. Your campus is an old industrial school, and in fact, it was one of the industrial schools very much caught up in the abuses of the church. And during the time that the industrial school was running, over 100 young boys died there. And it's such a dark history and a really upsetting history, and it never should have happened. But you're telling me that a campus that is in the same building as so much tragedy doesn't have its own stories, its own, atmospheres and feelings? I don't know. I find that hard to believe.
I find it hard to believe too, but just like nothing was coming up. I want to know. There's a graveyard dedicated to Letterfrack Industrial School graveyard, it's called, right? Dedicated to where these boys would have been buried. And you're telling me there's no activity throughout all these years?
Yeah. It doesn't add up. A place of great tragedy, I think it holds an energy. It holds a negative and a sadness. And I mean, I'm sure maybe GMIT doesn't want to publicize this because they're they want to encourage students to come and learn on their campus, and fantastic, and that's great. But you have to acknowledge the fact that it was a place of despair and destruction, and so many lives were corrupted and ruined and lost.
But and all these kind of places are associated with kind of a dark, sad past, like the next one that we have on our list is Cavan Institute.
Yeah, so Cavan is Cavan Institute. Part of the campus is in the building that was an old orphanage. And Cavan had an orphanage fire back in 1943 where 35 young girls died between the ages of 4 and 17. The building was burnt down to the ground, but this new building where Cavan's Institute um, hosts part of its classes in is the old orphanage building that was built on the site of the previous orphanage. And I think, like apparently when they went into it and when they were, getting it ready to be a college, that there were still beds in some of the rooms. And I find that so eerie. You're going to set this up as a place of learning, and yet you're walking into like what used to be very private spaces of where young girls were being, not living in the best of conditions, really. Yeah, so for anyone in Cavan Institute, don't know if you know that. Now, that's only in like, you'll know if you're in Cavan Institute. If you're in the old building, not the new part, then you're not in the orphanage.
But next on our list is NCAD in the Liberties in Dublin. So NCAD, it's what, National College of Art and Design in Dublin, which is in an old part of the city centre called the Liberties, which has a lot of it's a very rich in history area. There's a lot of ghost stories and legends surrounding the area. Anyway, this art college, which has a reputation of its own in Dublin, there, apparently there used to be a haunted dark room in it. I had an anonymous source tell me that they personally went in.
A dark room is where you do photography.
Yeah. So apparently there's a haunted dark room. They just said back in the day, so I have no specific year or anything like that. So this person said they're a hard-ass skeptic and a non-believer, but they said the room was really eerie when you went in, that it was part of the old Jameson factory and it just had the weirdest feeling inside of it. It was a series of narrow, tight rooms used as photo development labs, and they had a constant feeling that something was behind you. And the best analogy that they could describe of this feeling that kind of followed you is that feeling when, you're in the dark and there's an extra step on the stairs and you're patting the wall looking for a light switch and you hit the empty space of an open door, and it's that feeling that lingered behind you constantly, apparently, in these old labs. But again, apart from this one personal encounter that someone shared with me when we were researching, we couldn't find anything on NCAD, despite it being in such a rich part of town, it being an art and design college. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Which again, yeah, very surprising, because the building it's in, the part of town that it's in, it's right beside Christ. It's like a bit down from Christchurch. It's beside the Jameson Brewery. It's in an area that had a lot of history attracted to it. And you're telling me that it's somehow managed to just skip over it? I don't know.
The ghosts are like, nah.
Not this one.
Not interested. Not this one. Yeah.
But I don't know. I find it hard to believe that students, when they go into a campus, are not being kind of like told the whispers of, oh, like in this room and in that and this happens. Because that's the exciting stuff. People want to know the drama and the gossip.
That's true. We do.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I know when I go to like devote a lot of time into a place, I want to know its history. And I'm loving if there is any kind of like ghosty story to it.
I mean, we're into that stuff, so I'm like, oh yeah, tell me more.
Yeah, literally, the macabre. Let me know.
Yes, because it's interesting stuff. But just like NCAD, we also have the campus of DCU, which apparently had a haunted room, and we even know that apparently it was the room numbered T101. So we know the number of the room, and that apparently it was a haunted room on campus in DCU, but we have nothing on it.
No, we don't know why it's haunted. We don't even know what happened there.
Nothing.
But we just saw one or two sources saying that room was haunted. I was like,
great.
Okay,
so
why? Like, yeah.
Why?
So
who? Where? When?
Yeah, literally. So DCU students out there, NCAD students, any students that, any of the rooms, any of the colleges we've just mentioned, if you are a student of one of those campuses, please tell us. We want to know what in the name of God is in room T101.
If you have anything, share it with us, please. Because I'm going to be itching about this forever now.
I know,
What's
yeah.
D101?
We found a common theme with a lot of campuses as well, is that the more haunted the place is, the more inclined that building hosts the art students. What
That's
does that
true.
mean? What does that mean? I don't know.
I don't know, because just like, yeah, because I mean, we personally know UCD because we both went there and that's how we met. But even there, it's like almost every time the arts building is the oldest building, and that's where any activity, if there ever was any, is always in these bloody buildings.
Oh, totally be in Newman. Imagine a whole lot of ghosts just floating around the basement, wondering where those pool tables are that we never got to experience.
Right? Where's the pool tables? How come I didn't get to experience that?
Yeah.
You just have to sit on grimy, sticky chairs and tables.
Ugh. Yeah, and the fabric just ripping off them.
Oh, stop. It looked
Yeah.
like somebody had gnawed them. Yeah.
It did. And all the nice buildings around campus, you're like, Jesus, I have to go back to Newman now with its like nuclear bunker design. Like,
Literally. For anyone who hasn't been in UCD, it really does look that. It looks like a nuclear bunker. But sure, let's go move on to our list of 8 that we could
top
find about.
8 Irish
Top
haunted
8.
universities. That's what we're going with. That's the clickbait that I've been trying to run with, that Jenny won't let me run with, but I'm running with it. This is your top 8 most haunted Irish universities, according to Jenny and Sarah and our poor research.
And I pour. Yep. I mean, we did our best, guys. We did our best. I'm sorry.
We did thorough research. Like, we're really stressing to you. We didn't like, just like, Google grand. Like, we really went into the nitty gritty trying to find out things. So here you are.
Here you are. Yeah. So we're going to start at the bottom of the list, right? Going up to our 2 most well-known haunted campuses, I guess. So at number 8, we have Waterford Institute of Technology in Waterford.
Yeah.
This is we're starting at the bottom. It has, again, a dark history, but it's hard to find information on it. But the college, this is Waterford IT, the College Street campus, which is where humanities and lifelong learning and education schools are officially located now. The building a while ago was purchased from the Good Shepherd Order of Nuns, and that is where a Magdalen laundry and orphanage attached used to be. So that is why we think, like, it's very likely then that there would be some kind of, all that kind of trauma, pain, negative energy, emotion, so many people went through so much in these places. So of course there would be some kind of, obviously, history and energy lingering around these places.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I could find on this was 2 users on Reddit left 2 small kind of accounts of their knowledge of what could have happened here. One lady is a mother of a girl, and she said that her daughter went out there with friends one evening to a house right near the campus, just to take some photos of the house. And she told her, she came back very nervous and said that there was some really weird stuff showing up in the photos, and the camera never worked properly after that again. She said they legged it out of there after seeing a white childlike figure that followed them down to the hedge and that they went through, and it freaked them out completely and they never went back. This is from the user Rubber Legs on Reddit. That's one account that I found. So I guess if you know that it's used to be a Magdalen laundry and an orphanage, and they saw a white childlike figure, I would assume it's obviously a child from one of the orphanages.
It matches up, like, it's not
Yeah.
just an old man, though. It's kind of like, it's a bit removed, a child directly, potentially very much linked to that history. Yeah.
Yeah. And then someone replied to that down the line, just kind of saying, how can the college campus not be haunted? That the Magdalen laundry with an attached orphanage used to be on the same street as the college street campus now. And this person has said that they didn't attend there themselves, but they spent time in the building for one reason or another. And one day they went up to the very top floor, where you were not supposed to be going, of course, as always is the case, and the door was open. They said, I stepped into the room and couldn't go any further, as it was the saddest, most horrible, most terrifying place, and all the cots, wardrobes, beds, and other things were still in the room. And they later heard that this room was completely cleared out and just now lies empty. So
What? They were all
Yeah.
still there when
What?
this person went up. You mean when they still went into that building and went up to the top floor and they could see all the
All this was still standing there, yeah.
Oh, that's so upsetting.
Yeah. It was just all still standing there, with open door, obviously not cleared out yet or anything. And yeah, they just said that, like, you know, that, as they said, the saddest, most horrible, and most terrifying place. I guess the kind of the feeling that you get, which a lot of people say whenever they go into a kind of a place with paranormal activity or somewhere where something really horrible happened, they feel it in the air, you know?
How can that campus that has all that history attached to it not have sightings?
And these are the only two accounts I could find about, like, anything relating about Waterford College Street campus. This is literally it.
There you go, Waterford students. If any of you are listening and you're crying out for representation in, you know, social media and in the newspapers about Waterford campus and like its urban legends,
let us represent.
Now's the time to get in touch and be like, well, actually, you know what? I had a weird experience on the College Street campus. There you go. Now's the time.
Yeah.
Right. So moving on to number 7 on our list.
Yeah.
We are going back into the city. We are going back into Dublin, and we are going to the Royal College of Surgeons. A background on the Royal College of Surgeons. It's a private university. It's opposite St. Stephen's Green, for anyone that doesn't know, and it is responsible for the study of surgery. Here's a little kind of interesting thing for you, Jane. Back in medieval times, there was a surgeon barber guild, because of course barbers were surgeons in medieval times. The guild was called the Guild of St. Mary Magdalene. That's an interesting kind of thing for surgery. I don't know why. Anyway, she was the figurehead chosen, and it was in Christchurch. And then in 1446, Henry VI allowed for its recognition, and it became the first medical corporation in Britain or Ireland. So there you go. That happened in Christchurch.
Nice.
But then in 1765, a surgeon from Limerick called Sylvester O'Halloran was looking at the French and looking at how they had colleges for surgeries, and was thinking, why in Ireland do we not have a college for surgeries? We still have this kind of the not the barber surgeon relationship, but they hadn't a designated school for that. It was completely unregulated. So they went on ahead, and in 1784, King George III granted permission for the school to be recognised as an official surgery college in Ireland. And of course, there's loads of Royal Colleges of Surgeons. There's a few in England and everything like that. And this kind of falls on the branch. But one of those founders was William Dees. And he was actually born in Cavan. He's a Cavan man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was very proud of that when I saw that. Like, there you go.
Represent.
Anyway, yeah, literally, yeah, this is my representing. He was born there in 1752. He studied in Paris, and then he returned and became a surgeon at the United Hospital of St. Nicole and St. Catherine in Dublin City, and then he married Eliza Dowell, and they lived on O'Connell Street. They had a son who was called Richard. He became president of RCSI, but he later died of an infection that he picked up in the dissecting room.
Oh.
Nasty. Mm-hmm. But the story that goes with the Royal College of Surgeons is related to the founder, William Dees. So there is a lot of question over, he died by suicide at the age of 46, and he died by cutting his femoral artery in his leg. But the reasons for this are unknown. One of the reasons is that a patient died on the operating table because he cut their artery by this mistake, and he felt so bad that he took it out on himself by doing the same thing on himself.
So
another is that one theory. Another theory was that he was living with a very insufferable disease and he couldn't take it anymore, so he did the deed. And then the third theory, which is kind of the theory that everyone gets excited by, is that he was a member of the United Irishmen, and one day he heard that the Brits were coming to arrest him, and he didn't want to be arrested. He didn't want to go to prison. He didn't want the disgrace of that. So he packed his stuff, went home, and cut the artery in his leg. Okay. The weird thing is, inside when you walk in the doors of the Royal College of Surgeons, there is a statue that was presented to the college of William Dees during the late 1800s.
Okay.
And when the statue was presented, it was immaculate, it was perfect, it was just this lovely, classic 17th or 18th century kind of man in dress.
Yeah.
Over time, a crack appeared in his leg that goes in the exact position as to where he cut the artery.
Wow.
Yeah. So they don't really know why the crack formed or like when it exactly appeared, but it wasn't there when it was made.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's like running right down his leg, it's a bit weird. Do you know what I mean? That's a weird place to get a crack. You know, like if you have a sculpture, it's going to be at its weakest point where it's going to get a crack, like the hand or something that's like
the thick thigh.
Yeah, the thick thigh that's in a sitting position, that's on. You know, it's a mass section. It's not like it's hanging out of his body like an arm outstretched or something. I don't know. It's a weird one. Yeah. So there you go, Royal College of Surgeons. You have a mysterious cracked statue.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, maybe he came back and he was like, oh, need to fix this statue. So
yeah, maybe that's everyone wanting to be represented true to their form, like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But also, the Royal College of Surgeons was held by the Irish Citizen Army during the 1916 Rising. Like the place is riddled with bullet holes. You're telling me that there's nothing from that time as well? I don't know. I find that hard to believe.
Right there with you. Yeah. Let's go down to the next one on our list. Is it?
Number 6.
Number 6 is going to be Limerick. So the Limerick School of Art and Design, or LSAD, is what we're talking about. So this is another weird one where I couldn't find any proof of this personally. Again, we dug and there was nothing coming up. But I had a source come to me that wishes to remain anonymous. And this person told me about their own personal experience because they attended this college in the 90s. So LSAD, or the Limerick School of Art and Design, it's an art college of mostly fine arts in Limerick City in Ireland. It's one of the 5 constituent schools of the Limerick Institute of Technology, and it operates on 2 of this institute's campuses in Limerick City. So one on Clare Street, one on George's Quay. The Clare Street campus is located on the site of an old Lancastrian school where many years later, when attendance figures dropped out of the school, it fell into despair. And in November 1821, the Christian brothers purchased it for £200. And then many years later, when the Christian brothers left in 1888, they sold it to the nuns for £200. And then the nuns established a girls' reformatory. The building was officially sold to the nuns in 1879. They demolished it and constructed this reformatory to house young women who had become pregnant out of wedlock. And they established a Magdalen laundry there as another adjacent site, which had actually was the site of a public execution ground in the 16th and 17th centuries. Known as the, I think, Farran Crowe execution site, which is absolutely mad. A site that had the Magdalen laundries on an execution site, and there's no documented bloody paranormal activity on an execution site.
Yeah, like,
kidding me.
There's gonna be feelings.
They continue to operate this reformatory school and the laundry at the site until it was sold to the Regional Technical College in 1994.
Wow.
Which is a year before I was born. So, like, that's too close to my lifetime, you know, that we had laundries functioning. So yeah, and the Good Shepherd Institution is what it was called. It operated on Clare Street, where part of the campus is now, until the 90s. And this, when the laundry was there, when it was functioning, it was a complex that consisted of commercial laundry, an industrial school, a reformatory school for girls, an orphanage, a convent, and a church. So when that all was functioning, that was there before the college.
Yeah. So you had all these on the same grounds.
All of these on the same grounds, and it's likely that like thousands of women and children passed throughout this building during this time, you know, and this is where the art college now is. So you have all that kind of rich history, you know, sitting there before the campus was built. And the source that I spoke to anyway used to be a student there in the 90s, when, you know, the laundries were still functioning. All the scandals and abuse hadn't come out about them yet. So as they said, the laundry wasn't like a bad word then. They didn't really know what was going on. So, you know, they were attending college. They were a fine arts student and photographer. While attending, they were told that there was a crypt downstairs. So that was a common thing. They kept saying, you know, everybody talked about this crypt in the basement, and they were forbidden as students to go down into the basement or onto the top floor. There was an antique staircase apparently in the college, and they were forbidden to go up that onto the top floor. And they were like, they insisted they were like quite you know, stern about that. And of course, as like with all horror movies or fairy tales or whatever else, you know, when something's forbidden, like, you know, left wing of the castle, you have to go there. You know, you have to go and figure it out. So so they said, you know, my friends and I, obviously we had to go down into the cellar, into the bottom, to see what was there, to find this crypt, you know. And they went down. There was a locked door that you just couldn't pass. They thought that was quite suspicious. And when they confronted their tutors about it, the tutors completely denied that there is such a thing as a crypt. But again, it's like, if this is the big urban legend and the myth, or many people and other tutors or teachers maybe told you about it, but then your tutors straight out deny that there's anything like that, when they're still functioning like laundries, and it used to be an orphanage, an execution ground, you know, a reformatory school. They said that they then tried to go up to the top floor, where they were also forbidden, up this antique staircase that was forbidden. And they said that this is where it used to be a laundry. They said that at the time they called these rooms stables, because this is where women and their children used to be kept in. Can you imagine that? Stables.
Really derogatory.
Yeah. And so they knew, they were like, this is knowledge. There used to be a laundry, there used to be the stables, and they were locked also. And this is where the person I spoke to said you could clearly see like nail claw marks at the doors here, as if women were, you know, dragged into these rooms. It's very clear. It gave you a horrible, horrible, eerie feeling, like a very chilling feeling. And you could very clearly see 4 nail marks of, you know, being dragged across the door. And they said, like, once you saw that, it was very kind of like, you know, as they said, like a very nope kind of feeling. You know, you see that, you feel awful, it's chilling, and you just have to get out of there, you know, naturally.
I don't know. I mean, everyone knows the stories of the laundries, and I don't know. It's so upsetting.
It's so upsetting. It's so upsetting.
We're in the same building, in a building of education, where so many
something like that went on.
Yeah.
It's a sad one. And this person also told me that they had there were tales of a ghostly couple seen on the 3rd floor, or always apparently on the 3rd floor of the college, of this building as well. And they had 3 random people tell them, so 3 different sources that had never talked to each other, all had the same experience and described the exact same couple. They all pointed out to that it was roughly on the 3rd floor, and they said that an apparition of a ghostly couple dancing could be seen somewhere around the 3rd floor on this campus.
You wonder, like, then, like, who are these? Who is this couple?
Who is it? Yeah.
Because this is positive. If they're dancing, you know, was this like a love between one of the inmates and maybe their lover, and that's the reason why they're in there? You know, like,
I want to know, a student and a woman, or like a female teacher and a student, or, you know what I mean? Like, I want to know.
I want to know. That's a nice image to be seen. You know, a couple dancing.
Yeah, apparently. And just, and they all just described this couple. So I don't know if anybody is a fine art student or a design student in Limerick, and you have ever heard about a ghostly couple, please tell us, or anything to do with this mysterious old laundry or anything.
I want to know as well, is that rumor about the crypt still alive?
I know,
What?
because it's just a thing. It's like a tradition. You're a new student. Every new student is always introduced to the urban legends and the myths of the place. It's something really exciting. It's like a rite of passage, you know? So
Yeah.
if anybody attends Limerick and listens to this or has attended Limerick, are you still told about a crypt? Like,
Yeah. Has anyone gone down into the basement and discovered if there is a crypt or not? Has anyone dug up the floor of the basement and been like, there's the crypt all along under the floor, you know?
I want to know. Anyway,
Right.
so next on our list, what do you
What's
have
this?
here?
5. Number 5?
5, yeah.
Moving on to number 5. We have Griffith College. So we've gone back up to Dublin, back into the private university system, and we are going to Griffith. Griffith is a campus on the South Circular Road, I'm pretty sure, in Dublin. Fairly central enough-ish. But anyway, from 1813 to 1877, Griffith College was actually called Richmond Bridewell Prison.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, it was not a college. It held offenders who were convicted of minor crimes, but for the fact that they were there for minor crimes, the conditions that they were put through were incredibly severe, possibly not justifying the crimes that they were in there for. So, for instance, you could experience solitary confinement. You could be forced to go on the treadmill. You may be forced to wear a metal helmet that constricted your skull, or you would be have to endure flogging. So, like, there was 250 prisoners there at around 1860. Its most famous prisoner was Daniel O'Connell, the big man himself.
Wow.
He was there for 3 months in 1843. He was there after his monster meeting in Clontarf, where he kind of gathered people together to talk about forming an Irish self-government. The idea of the start of a republic was deemed illegal, and he was put into the prison. But Daniel O'Connell, I was going to say Daniel O'Donnell, definitely not him. Daniel O'Connell had a more comfortable stay. He was allowed to stay in rooms in the governor's suite. So he didn't have to go through like what the average person had to go through. But its most famous inmate, I would say, is a man called Joseph Poole. Joseph Poole was a member of the Irish Republican Brotherhood. In 3rd of July 1883, himself and a few other Fenians who were members of the Irish Republican Brotherhood met at a pub on Cork Hill. One of those members in attendance was John Kenny. John Kenny was later found stabbed and shot under the railway arch at Seville Place.
Oh, God.
Poole and others were arrested. It later transpired that Kenny had been an informant of the superintendent of Dublin Castle and had been giving information over to the authorities at Dublin Castle so that they could intercept all the movements of the Irish Republican Brotherhood. But it is well believed that Poole's conviction and Poole's arrest was wrongfully happened. It's believed that he was convicted by the jury being packed with men of unionist views and by bribing and coercing witnesses to testify against Poole. So there was this huge big scandal, but apparently when he was on trial, he was very noble, he was very dignified, and he won the favour of a lot of the public because of his manner. And there is a quote here that when he was in the dock and his trial was finished and he was going to be sentenced to execution, he's quoted in saying this: "I have been a member of the Irish Republican Brotherhood for years, and I would be proud to go for the scaffold for being a member of the Brotherhood. I have been in the organisation since I was 18 years of age, and my object was simply to wait until my countrymen were prepared to strike a blow for the independence of our country. I intended to take a part with them. I know that it is because of my being an enemy, humble as I am, of this government which we are under and which we live, I am prepared to die."
Wow.
I don't know about you, Jenny, but I got very, very kind of like, I'm a proud Irish person, when I heard that, But anyway, he was hung and he is buried in the campus of Griffiths College in an unmarked grave. In the 1950s, his family tried to set an appeal about to excavate parts of the campus where they think he might be buried so that they could give him a proper burial, but no remains were found when they did this. But
Wow.
it is said that Joseph Poole's ghost is seen wandering Griffith College.
Wow. Maybe because, yeah, his body's nowhere to be found. He wasn't buried properly, you know?
Maybe because maybe he wants justice for his wrongful conviction, all of this kind of stuff. And I think it's, so if you're a member of Griffith College, have you ever seen anything happen there? I think, again, it was a prison. Many men went through a lot of trauma. And if you were in there for minor crimes and potentially petty crimes, maybe even due to your circumstance, if you were poor and you were robbing to like feed your family kind of idea, or if you were a member of like an organization trying to form a republic at the time, and you were in there for those crimes, and you were put through such hardship and trauma, you're telling me again that there's not this kind of energy sitting around the place? But there you go, Griffith College students, we want to hear from you. Have you ever seen a ghost? There is a plaque. There is a plaque on one of the buildings in Griffith College to Joseph Poole.
But yeah, will we go down to our number 4 on the list?
Number 4.
Is a big one as well. The nitty-gritty. It's a big one, and this probably has like some of the darkest history, perhaps, that we do have in Ireland. But again, we couldn't find any sources on it of documented paranormal cases or anything like that. Number 4 on our list is DIT, Dublin Institute of Technology, the Grange Gorman campus in Dublin City. It's just on the north part of the inner city. It's like 1 kilometre from the city centre. The Grange Gorman campus on DIT is now an arts building, again, as we talked about. It's the arts building where social sciences, art, design and photography students are. The thing why this is on the list, the reason why this is on the list, I guess, is because the Grange Gorman campus used to be the Richmond Asylum, which was, or it was called when it opened in 1815, the Richmond Lunatic Asylum. So it was at its peak, it held over 2,000 patients.
Oh, wow.
So many, like an insane amount of patients. So I think from my research, they did intend to open this up with good intentions, that they were looking at kind of French models of mental health hospitals and psychiatric centers, and kind of hoping to bring it to Ireland with developing like close patient-doctor relationships to try and, actually do some good for the people of Dublin. But because there were so many patients at its peak, as I said, serving over 2,000, it just became unmanageable. So when there's so many patients, you start to care not more about the actual patients, but about the upkeep of the building, that, sanitation and things like that suffer, hygiene and sanitation and, conditions suffer when, the focus isn't on the people anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the 20th century, they changes like in care of the mentally ill had moved away from large institutions, which resulted in the gradual decanting and downsizing of institutions such as St. Brendan Hospital. But so they tried to make this a thing, but it just grew too big until it closed down in May 2013 when there were less than 60 patients in the hospital. And yeah, it's just been the location of this campus has been really important to the citizens of Dublin because it used to be St. Brendan Hospital, then the Richmond Lunatic Asylum. It was supposed to be like a national institution for recovering people. In 1921, its name was changed to the Grange Gorman Mental Hospital. And then in 1958, it changed to St. Brendan's Hospital. So it's the same building, but they changed it. And now it's in the process, or it's going to become the Phoenix Care Centre, which will be on the Grange Gorman campus. And the remainder of this like 30-hectare property will be redeveloped as a campus for Dublin, the actual Dublin Institute of Technology. So the reason why this was brought into the forefront, I guess, of say maybe news or into our society's minds in the last few years is because an artist discovered that while the college campus is renovating this building to be part of the campus and this arts building, it turns out there were boxes and boxes and boxes of unacclaimed belongings of patients. Just like if there's thousands of boxes with thousands of personal belongings, like hundreds of women's handbags with everything still in them, things like that. Like, why weren't they claimed, you know? If there were, this artist said almost every single handbag had a pair of rosary beads. There was, you know, letters, Christmas cards, photographs of loved ones, you know, vanities, makeup, medication, dentures even.
What it represents about somebody. You know, they always say that you can tell a lot by a woman by what they carry in their
In their
bag.
purse, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. You could tell a lot about these potential ghosts, you know?
No, and like just think about something like, yeah, the days before a phone, like would a photograph of your favorite and most loved people not be like the most precious thing to you? Why would you not collect that, you know?
I know, yeah, the
Yeah.
stories that were behind them, yeah.
And like, and so many, the fact that there was just so many boxes of so many possessions, that raised questions, obviously, like, what happened to these people? Who are these people? Like, if they died in the institution, why didn't their families care to reclaim their things? So this was brought to light, yes, in a documentary made by Alan Cunhan called Personal Effects. Alan did an exhibition where he wanted to, you know, bring these, you know, people's lives, remainders of their lives to the public, where a lot of people, he said, came along to see, you know, whether some of these people were their relatives. And he said the eerie line that myself and Sarah found was it the line between them and us is very, very thin. And some of these people that went in there weren't sick at all. Just a bit eerie.
Yeah.
But I found that, you know, in the 1820s, a person could be committed directly to an asylum on the evidence of another person. There was a thing called the Dangerous Lunatic Act of 1838, which meant that a person could be arrested if deemed to be a danger to him or herself or others and committed first to jail and then to the district lunatic asylum. We've heard about this throughout history as well, where like just if you're poor, if you were mentally ill, if you're just a nuisance or you were dangerous, or people were apparently committed for things like alcoholism, promiscuity, disruptive behavior,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, if you were in any way breaking from the norm and breaking from what was socially acceptable at the time, you were admitted. And again, the sad reality of it is that there were people in there who shouldn't have been in there and were forced into a narrative that they didn't belong in, rightfully so. And anyone that belonged into those kind of institutions back in a time when, as you say, Jenny, you know, regulation was probably not the best between like doctor and patient, would have, I'd say, have to have undergone some sort of upsetting experience, traumatic experience. I don't know. And I
Yeah.
think have your campus a part of that history. You know, I just think, you know, you're walking the same corridors as potentially somebody being admitted for not knowing how long they're going to be in there, maybe feeling scared, feeling concerned. And I think the greatest thing is if your sanity in any way is being questioned. It's like that quote that is in the psychopath test book. It's easy to convince someone you're insane. It's harder to convince somebody that you're sane.
That you're sane. Yeah.
And it's because, like, what does a sane person do? How do they sit? How do they eat? How do they
How
look?
they act, yeah.
Yeah, because what is...
I mean, especially if you were someone who would have been, you know, committed wrongfully or whatever, or, you know, admitted by a family member or something, if that's what people are looking for, it was, I can imagine, very hard to convince them otherwise.
Absolutely.
You know? And I mean, but it wasn't all bad. I mean, I found a really good article that talked about how people try to do the good, that they really did want to improve things and improve conditions and have that kind of close patient-doctor relationship. It just grew out of control. It was badly organized. There was too many patients. There's a doctor I found in when he became one of the main doctors in the 1960s. He said that people were so like they were treated well, and this had become their life, that they were so hopelessly institutionalized, you know. And
Yeah.
he said, he quote, "I remember one fellow who was keen on gardening and growing things. He had a little hut. I thought he would be a prospect for living in the community. We got a place for him in the community, but he walled himself up in his hut and suffocated himself because he couldn't face leaving."
That happened in Grange Gorman.
This is on in the asylum, like.
Oh my gosh.
You know, can you imagine? And we know this is a whole thing. Like we've got movies and everything made about it where you become so institutionalized you just cannot even fathom the idea of living a life outside of
Yeah.
this place, you know?
If any DIT students are listening, I mean, tell us. Have you ever walked down those corridors and felt like someone's walking with you? Have you ever seen something, heard something, had a strange feeling in one of your rooms? I don't know. I mean, I know these places are like classically told to us that they're haunted and that they're filled with dread and stuff, but
But I
maybe
mean,
there's truth in
I
it.
feel like there's some truth to that. I mean, a place where over 2,000 patients were, God knows what went on, really. Doesn't mean it was all horrible and bad, but like for a place like this that now just became an arts building in the city center, like
Mm.
how is there nothing? And we couldn't find a thing on this, nothing,
No, so we
no
want.
paranormal activity.
I mean, like I just imagine if this was. I suppose in a way it's good that nobody is like making up their own stories perhaps and is like just putting rumor out into the community because of the framework that like having an old psychiatric hospital as your campus
Yeah,
would have. But like I don't know, I still feel that there has to be stories or experiences because it
of
was
such a
that
rich
kind of
history.
building.
But yeah, that was number 4. Going down to number 3.
We're going up to Belfast. I don't know if that's a good accent, but
It's better than what I do. Okay, it's a fair try. Please forgive us, Belfast folk.
I can't talk. We're going into the north of the. I'm from freaking Ulster and I can't even talk. Right, we're going in top 3. Belfast Queen's University.
Right, what happened there?
Well, a little bit of background on it. It was founded in 1810. It was originally connected to the Belfast Academical Institution, which was a grammar school for boys. And then it became chartered as the Queen's University in 1845. And it was founded alongside 2 other colleges under the Queen's title in Cork and Galway. Cork is now UCC and Galway is now NUIG, but they were previous Queen's universities.
Oh.
And it's interesting because the university was to encourage education for Catholics and Presbyterians because Trinity was only accepting people from Anglican backgrounds. So there
Oh.
you go. So I think that's interesting that it was like, the something under Queen's, founded by Queen Victoria, was offering Catholics and Protestants the same level of education because Trinity was so stuck up its own arse that it decided to only give it to Anglicans. But
Oh,
anyway,
Trinity.
so that's a little information on you for Belfast University. But the stories behind this. So Belfast University, like most campuses, is kind of broken up. So there's the main body of the campus, and then a little bit further down the street, you have a few other buildings belonging to the university that are on like a street. But behind one of these buildings is a graveyard called Friar Bush Graveyard.
Okay.
And it is completely closed off to the public. It has been for, I think, 150 years. You can go to it if there are tours organized, but you have to like check up on it. It
You
is.
have to do that, Sarah.
I know, Jenny. When I read this, I was like, I have to visit this place. It is only 2 acres big. It's very small, but it is so full of history and really dark history for such a little place. So how it gets its name, Friar Bush, was the place was supposed to have been the site of a church, like a hedge school, during the penal times.
Right.
So the story goes that there was a friar conducting mass there one day, and these other people came in, they shot him, and they hung him from a tree that was on the site. The rest of the mass goers were able to flee safely, but the friar was killed. And
And 1 second, and this is a hedge school for anybody who doesn't know. This is when it was illegal to practice Catholicism.
yes,
So people used to gather in secret
Yeah.
to have mass and whatnot. So
yeah, to have mass and to educate and to keep whatever part of the Irish culture that was trying to be oppressed and stamped out of by the Brits. Sorry, after reading about Joseph Poole, I'm like, there we go. But
Yeah.
but anyway, he is said to have been buried under the tree, so that's how the name comes of Friar Bush.
Okay. Interesting.
It's also the site of many grave robberies. In 1823, two strangers walked into the graveyard and then were later stopped at Belfast docks with two big barrels. When these barrels were opened up, they were full of sawdust, and in one barrel there was the body of a woman, and in the other was the body of a child.
Oh
They were
dear.
trying to get the bodies from the graveyard over to Edinburgh, where there was huge demand for
Cadavers, like.
cadavers for medical practice. Because, of course, the two most famous grave robbers, Burke and Hare, were from Ulster.
For
So
God's sake.
it was it was business. But this happened, and one of the guys that had it was drunk while he was doing it. Like, I mean, it wasn't like these guys were, some of them were probably very skilled and crafted, but I think these two sounded like absolute chancers going in, like, make a few rob a few bodies, be grand.
Be
And
grand, get some bob, yeah.
literally, if you're going to rob bodies and try to smuggle them past authorities, you would think you would be sober. Apparently not.
Apparently not, no.
But after this happened, gates were erected around the sides of the graveyard. There is 8 foot high walls, and it has a high arched Gothic gate lodge to stop future bodies being robbed.
Wow.
Which I think the extent that people had to go to.
Because it was happening. That's
Because it was happening. And I often, the way some graves in older graveyards have the railings around them?
yeah.
That's the same reason, to stop bodies being snatched.
Wow.
I never knew that. And I remember reading about it one day and I was like, oh my God, that explains so much. Because I love going around old graveyards. I'm one of those weirdos. So,
I mean, we do that together, so
yeah,
I think there's even one up there in the spot where I'd like to bring you,
to stop
in the
bodies.
area I live, because yeah, it just seems so bizarre, and it's kind of like, well, what, you see it and you're like, how could you come here to visit someone and be comfortable
Yeah.
around it? But then that's why.
That's why.
bad.
It's like you can't get into your family member, but there's a reason for that.
So if you can't, then the robbers can't.
There you go. In the graveyard as well, there is an area called the Plaguey Pit.
Oh dear.
And in this area, it's covered in exotic flowers and herbs. There is a black headstone nearby that marks the resting place for thousands of people that died from cholera during the 1830s and from the famine in the
Wow.
1840s. And the ground is completely uneven. It's bumpy, it's lumpy, it looks as if it's about to explode. The image of it is unsettling because it looks stuffed, for want of a better word. I know that image is not nice. And it's really interesting because Queen's University was founded at the same time as all these people were being buried in the pits. And I think that when you draw that comparison, it's very strange. The other the very sad history of the graveyard, if that wasn't enough, I mean, 2 acres and all of this it has to it, was that women who had children illegitimately, and particularly servant women, mistresses, young girls, they were said to take their babies and throw them over the walls of the graveyard, and then the caretakers would find them the next day. And I think that's really upsetting. When I read that, I was very upset to hear that. All this history is attached to the graveyard, so you can imagine having a university right on its doorstep, that there's bound to be connections happening, and there is. So the building that overlooks the graveyard is Ashby Building, and it's one of the physics buildings. And between this building and another building on the opposite side of the road is the David Kerr Building, and there is a tunnel connecting them under the ground. It's just easier to travel that way. But there have been many occurrences over the years, both by students and by staffs and construction workers, that when they walk through these tunnels, they feel as if someone is holding their hand.
Wow.
Yeah, and there has been encounters when people have felt touched. They have felt particular cold spots that are not naturally cold. Um, Unsettling experiences like that have happened. And I would say that's hugely connected to the fact that that's where the graveyard is.
I think so.
I think so. Like, I mean, that's eerie. But there is
Wow.
also a room in the Peter Fogart Center. So let us know, because I can only find one document that would say this. The others about the hand holding thing changes from like the tunnel under the buildings to archways near the buildings. But it's funny, it's like whatever kind of place that you pass through, like that kind of liminality again,
Ooh,
you know,
yeah,
that
yeah.
passing through, and you're in this, not in one place or the other. There's this hand holding thing. I don't know, that seems very metaphorical and symbolic and a
I mean, it
police.
makes sense if it is like a liminal space. You're
Yeah,
passing through something. It's easier maybe for a spirit or something to access it for a moment and then it's gone.
potentially. It satisfied me greatly kind of hearing about that kind of thing. But in the Peter Fogart Centre, room 006A is apparently a little bit funny. It has lights that flicker on and off. The projector will just take notions for itself and act up. If you are studying in the room, laptops and phones are said not to work right. Files won't open. The door apparently opens of its own accord. The room just seems to be full of activity that has got to do with like electricity and things like that. And I know if I was a student there, I for one would not be going to do my essays there because God forbid it deleted itself. I
Oh
think
God.
Oh, I think my wails would be louder than any ghost haunting the place. And that's the truth.
That is true. Yeah, shout out to any student that's ever accidentally deleted their essay because we've been there.
Do you remember that video that went viral of the student in UCD that
Going mental.
gone mental because he deleted it? Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah. Like the guy having like
A
mental
fit.
breakdown. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The
And
poor
I think
guy.
nobody like even laughed at it. I think everyone was just in deep remorse for him and just like,
Yeah, like solemnly, really, just like feeling this guy's pain with him.
yeah. Oh,
Oh,
I actually get teary when I think about that. Anyway, yeah, there you go. So Queen's University students in
wow.
Belfast. I mean, like, it's Belfast. It is the site of so much activity, both like modern and old. There has to be stories in there, in that campus. If you are a student, we'd love to hear them.
Seriously. And like we have to visit that graveyard
Yes,
one day.
Jenny.
Oh my Jesus. Especially if we can get a tour. We are doing that. We're making a YouTube video.
Oh, yes.
You know?
When I saw it, like, you can look up the images of it, and it's exactly what you would want in a graveyard, like classic headstones, spooky atmosphere, the big high walls, the gates. It's so unnerving, but I'd say it's so interesting to go in. And I'd say if you got a tour of that place, the history that would be in that tiny little area. And like the fact that it's closed off to the public, and you can only go in to be buried. You can't even go in, I think, to visit your family members.
Wow.
Yeah, so when you're going in, you're dead.
And you go
You know?
basically. I was like, you're going in when you're to be buried. You're like, well, you won't be going in.
Yeah, your body.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, what a rich history for such a small bit of land.
Yeah, literally. So
Wow.
Queens being attached to it has managed to move the energy off the graveyard into its land.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you'd wander as a ghost.
Yeah, imagine like the graveyard is so full of bodies, and all these ghosts are in the graveyard just sitting there, sick of each other. They're like, "Geez, I heard your man's in the tunnel again. Let's go down and see what he's doing." Because
Yeah.
imagine it's like Beetlejuice, and they can't go outside like a certain
Like us
dimension.
right now outside their 5K.
Yes, actually, you're right. It does feel a bit like that if we go outside the 5K if the monster's gonna come get us. Yeah,
you know? So yeah, maybe that's how it is, you know? Maybe
yeah.
that's what it is. Maybe that's why, yeah, like, you always have like ghosts just don't like wander. There's like certain ghosts or spirits or whatever apparitions are said to linger around the same places all the time. Maybe they're limited by their 2K or 5K.
Maybe they go off into like an undesigned area, like in a video game map, and everything's pixelated and just colors. And it's
You
like
just walk alongside the wall, just you can't get any further.
Sims, they're just walking into the wall, like want to go
Yeah,
past it. Yeah.
yeah. Maybe that's how it is.
Maybe.
But yeah, let's go on to our top 2 universities, shall we?
Oh, top two. Big in the big boys.
So these are the 2 most well-known, most famous haunted universities. Number 2 is Trinity College Dublin.
You have to do it with the accent, Jenny.
I can't. You do it.
Oh gosh, can I get Trinity College Dublin? Is that a terrible accent?
I think so. Just a bit, yeah.
Okay.
You know, Trinners for Winners is number 2. So basically, I think this is the most, apart from our number 1 spot, the most famous case of a very well-known ghost comes from Trinity, in smack bang in the middle of Dublin City, which everybody around Dublin and, you know, mostly all of Ireland knows where it is, on the top of Dame Street. And they have a very famous ghost. And this is because a murder took place on campus in 1734. Typical. So this murder is associated with the oldest building of Trinity, which is called the Rubrics. It was designed and built around 1700, and today the Rubrics are used as rooms for students. And it's a red brick building hidden behind the campanile, which is the big bell tower when you first enter the big Trinity gates. There's a courtyard and a big kind of tower, a bell tower. And if you go under the tower, which has an arch, you will see the first big red building. And that's the Rubrics. So it's the oldest building on campus. Again, it's always the oldest ones, you know, that these things are linked to, dating back to the early 1700s when it was built. So this the ghost is the ghost of a Mr. Edward Ford, and he was a fellow of the college and like a well-known upper-class gentleman, a son of the Archdeacon of Derry. And he lived at number 25 of the building, of the Rubrics. And when this was happening, he was strongly disliked by the students because, you know, he was a proper gentleman. He had a very strong tendency to interfere with student matters. And the Trinners didn't like that. So on this particular evening, on 7th March 1734, a very boisterous group of students entered the front gate. They came into Trinity. They were all very drunk, and they beat the porter that was stationed there at the front gate.
Oh my gosh.
That's bad enough as it is, you know, this alcohol, I tell you.
Yeah.
So these students beat up this poor porter at the front gates. Ford heard about this, obviously. He was stationed nearby. They got a very strong scolding from them. Subsequently, they went to their rooms to plot, you know, because he's already disliked, and here he comes again, giving out to them after they had a night out. And after that, they made their way to the college's new square, that was known then as the playground, after midnight around midnight, to throw stones at his windows in retaliation. So it was around midnight, they're throwing stones at him. He came out the window, obviously, as he would, to tell these students to piss off. And he responded with a pistol. And one account says that he actually responded with the pistol and shot at the group and injured one. And then ordered the undergraduates to summon the porter because someone got injured, and he just intended to threaten them, you know. Other accounts just say that, you know, someone else who was with him in the room told him to stay away from the window, that something might happen, to stay back, and they just threw rocks. And when he gave out to them, students then dispersed, came back to their rooms, acquired pistols of their own, and returned to the Rubrics to his window again, kind of in retaliation. So this scholar urged him to go to bed, but he refused to listen. He went to the windows in his nightdress, gave out to the students even more for, you know, coming back. It's after midnight. He sees that they came with pistols. They fired, and he received shots in the head and the body. Wow. So he was shot by these students.
That's so
it's absolutely mad that
horrific, isn't it?
This actual murder took place on campus, like.
some fella, just these group of lads coming in and causing hassle, and then your man being like, "Look, I just want to go to bed. Like, leave me alone."
Can you
And
imagine?
like, if he did take out a pistol, like, it was wrong of him, but like, if he intended to fire it as a warning, you would imagine, like, if I mean, if there was someone outside your house causing hassle and just doing it to annoy you, you may walk out with like something to be like, "Feck off."
I
And
know, right?
yeah,
It's mad. And I know he was disliked, maybe you're a bunch of young students trying to have fun, and this kind of stuffy older man who always interferes with student matters, yeah, sure, he'll get annoying, but I don't think anyone deserves to get murdered for it, you know?
no.
And yeah, the poor guy was shot in the head, and the body, and he was moved downstairs quickly, and a surgeon was summoned. After 2 hours of agony, he died. And in his last words, when he was asked who did he see who shot him, he said, quote, "I do not know, but God forgive them, I do." And he died, apparently.
No.
And 4 students were accused by the names of Cotter, Crosby, Boyle, and Scholes. And it turns out all of them had been drinking heavily that night, and including the porter that they beat up had also been drinking heavily. So even he couldn't give a proper testimony because he was drunk, even though they beat him as well.
Eye rolling I am doing right now,
This
Jenny.
is major eye rolling. Like the sons of gentlemen getting drunk, beating someone up, shooting some other poor fellow, and nothing really happened.
Second.
And 2 of them went on to be like high-ranking members of society.
Oh my God.
So
Isn't it? It just goes to show you society doesn't change. You know, it's who you are. If you
it's insane. One of them was elected as an MP,
oh,
um, and another became a viscount and was later created an earl. Yeah, and these are people who shot him because they didn't have enough evidence. They couldn't really do anything, and they were the sons of gentlemen, really. So this poor man, it is this gentleman, Edward Ford, who was shot at number 25 in the rubrics, that is seen wandering around Trinity. And from a book entitled Trinity Student Pranks, A History of Mischief and Mayhem, even though I wouldn't call this a prank exactly,
yeah.
describes a spectral vision, and it says, quote, "His ghost, dressed in wig, gown, and knee breeches, is seen, is said to walk by the side of the rubrics at dusk. He emerges slowly from the door of his old chambers at number 25, walks more briskly in the direction of Botany Bay, and then fades into darkness."
Wow.
And that's the vision that is seen around the rubrics, especially at Trinity. And apparently this book as well quotes that other spectral incidents have included sightings of a confused and shadowy mob appearing outside the rubrics. And the author, John Ng, of this book says that no doubt they're poor Ford's assailants coming back to mock and torment him even in death, you know?
It's like a residual energy kind of like repeating like a tape over and over again.
And they say like many things like that have been spotted before, where it's that like, yeah, residual energy, it's so strong and negative that it almost like replays these
these events
from the past,
Well, I'm glad that Edward did his ghost outfit was not his nightdress. You know what I mean? That he got to wear his fancy clothes. That he didn't die in his nightcap and nightie, and that's his ghost outfit. And I'm happy that that's what it is. It's something appropriate for like probably a man of his status.
Yeah.
Around your nightdress is not a very flattering look.
Yeah, and so yeah, everybody was acquitted by the court. All 4 students were expelled actually, but I mean, as I said, one of them, went on to be an MP.
Yeah.
Another was a baron. So like, I doubt they actually paid any dues for this, and they were part of wealthy families anyway. So unfortunately, they never served time, or apart from being expelled from college, they were literally not. They literally got away with murder.
Like Trinity students, like, no hate to you. I absolutely, we're not coming down on you. But if you actually went back through the history of Trinity, and if you went back through the history of Dublin society, you realise how many times drunk Trinity students have caused hassle for other people. I swear.
Seriously.
I don't think you've realised you've caused riots, like.
And, well, there you go. Poor Edward Ford is the ghost of Trinity, seen around the oldest part of the college. And one other thing that I have found as well from trinitynews.ie, so there's very little cases that I could find this as well, that apparently the Marsh Library in Trinity is haunted as well by the ghost of the Archbishop Narcissus Marsh, who was the provost at Trinity in the 1670s. And then he rose to his clerical post in the nearby St. Patrick's Cathedral. And this library that he founded was his like personal library that grew. And the little story that goes with it is that he was the guardian of his niece Grace, and he was very fond of her. She was a young, beautiful, innocent little girl. She fell in love with a curate from an English parish, and she was worried about telling, her uncle, who was a religious man, that she had fallen in love with this English man. She didn't want to tell him, about her plans to marry and elope. So she left a note for him hidden in a book in the library and ran off to elope with this man. So the legend is that the poor man, was left so heartbroken that to this day, librarians in Marsh's library report a kind of lost, forlorn phantom kind of trawling through, piles and piles of books, desperate to find his niece's letter.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
Oh, I just want to give him a hug, like she broke his
Poor
heart.
Edward Ford and Mr. Marsh a hug, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's the other legend, and that's literally all I found on that.
they are old ghosts as well.
They're
Like
very old. 1670s and 1730s. 1734 was when Edward was shot.
So 17th and 18th century ghosts that are still seen.
Very old, yeah.
Yeah, please, any Trinity students, if you have seen these ghosts,
Or
let
felt
us know.
things or anything.
Yeah, I'd love to do that, because I mean, if Edward Ford is seen like outside of the building, she could just walk into Trinity, and why don't they do that? Why don't they set up a camera? Trinity has all these resources. Surely they could like set up a camera in a night vision camera or like a paranormal society camera. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, maybe nobody cares about ghosts as much as we do, Sarah.
Oh, I feel it's lost on me. Like, just that upsets me. Like, ghosts are great.
They are. And anyway, let's leave poor Mr. Edward Ford and Mr. Marsh and go to our number one spot.
Drumroll, please.
Drumroll, please. Our most haunted Irish university is
Maynooth.
NUI Maynooth in Kildare.
Surely, I would say, I don't know. I only heard about this story when I was in my second year of college, so I don't know how well known it is. Like, I'm sure every Maynoothian out there knows this story, but maybe other colleges don't. So sit back. This is a good, juicy one. This is, I think,
it really is
the equivalent. Yeah,
it is seriously. Like,
did you know about this when you were attending Maynooth, Jenny?
I did not know. I did 3 years in UC and then I did a year in Maynooth, and not once have I heard anything about this.
Oh, well then, here we
Just
go.
mad.
So, a little bit about Maynooth. It is in Kildare. It is the only university town in Ireland, because all the universities are located in cities in Ireland. There is 2 campuses. The southern campus is 19th century buildings, and that is shared with St. Patrick's College. And then literally there's a public road that divides the 2 campuses, and you go into the northern campus, and that's the more modern part with all your normal buildings. So St. Patrick's College, which is the southern part of the campus where all the old buildings are, it opened in 1795, and it trained 500 Catholic priests every year. It was the largest seminary in the world, and the seminary is where you go to study theology and scripture before you could be ordained as a member of the clergy. So before this, priests had to go to France to study, but the church was kind of getting a bit iffy about France because, the French Revolution was happening. They were becoming very unchristianized. They were scared Irish priests going over would become, enlightened, and they didn't want to kind of upset
Have rebellious priests, yeah.
Yeah, but then also around the same time, the penal laws were being lifted, so Catholicism was okay to practice again. So this institution was set up um, for priests to be educated. Actually, and what's really interesting is that in the 1500s they wanted to set up a college there, but then the Reformation happened, and all the lands and all the buildings were confiscated, and
Right.
and that didn't happen again. It was 200 years later before they got to get the college that they always wanted.
Wow.
Big delay in development.
Seriously.
But when you're talking about like priests and religion and Catholicism, that you're going to be going down like a good route of spooky. I don't know. I feel you are when you see horror films that are about like nuns or priests or Catholicism.
It's gonna get spooky.
Like, yeah, I think that's spooky.
Yeah.
So there is a room in the rhetoric house that is called the ghost room or blood room.
That's already freaky.
Yeah.
Blood room, for God's sake. Like,
this is the most sinister story and most terrifying story. The rhetoric house was built in 1834 and it was a residence for the priests in training. The ghost room is officially room 2. And in modern day, it is on the same floor as the history professor's corridors, or the history professor's offices. The room is now empty, except for a small altar covering a window, and on the altar there is a statue of Saint Joseph, who is the patron saint of a peaceful death. You will see why this saint was chosen to occupy this space.
okay.
Chances are, if you're a minute student studying history, you've probably been in this room. Let me know what it's like to be in there. I want to know.
I know.
So here we go, Jenny.
Right.
The first suicide happened in the 1840s. A resident of the room failed to show up for his lectures, so his friends went off to find him, and they found him soaking in a pool of his own blood in the room, a razor in his hand. Okay.
Oh, Jesus.
He had cut his throat. Room 2 was left vacant for the rest of the year. Next term came round, they were able to open up the room, they gave it to another student, except he died the same way.
Wow.
Another 2 suicides in the one room. So again, it was left vacant. After some time, they were able to open it up and give the room to another student. This student was found outside. This is a 3rd floor room. This student jumped from his window.
A third floor.
3rd
window.
floor window. He had jumped from his window and was found outside on the grass below. He was barely alive. When they brought him into the hospital, they treated his wounds, but he did end up succumbing to his injuries. Before he died, he said that he saw a demon face in the mirror telling him to end his life. So to prevent that force from manipulating him, he threw himself from the window.
Oh my God.
Isn't that terrifying? I have chills. So one of the head priests was like, look, I'm going to go in. I'm going to see what's happening. Like, this is weird. So the priest went into the room, and rumor has it, he came out of the room, his hair had turned white, and he was unable to speak about the events and what he had seen in that room that night. So they just were like, right, that's it. No more people are staying in that room. We're stopping it. So they made the room into an oratory. They put the statue in it. They stopped people from staying in it. But the rumor has that the stains that are on the floor of the room, there's some dark stains, are blood stains. And apparently the Maynooth chemistry department has confirmed that.
So there's just stains that just don't go away that are blood stains.
That are blood stains from where they cut their throat.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I think that's terrifying. And of course, suicide was a sin during this time. So there is a graveyard on the site of Maynooth University because obviously there was priests there. But they are buried in a part of the graveyard that is on unconsecrated ground. But if you go into the records of it, you can see the students' names and where they're buried in the plot. And I think that's really eerie. I just, there's something really disturbing about that. But to this day, it is strictly forbidden to bring a mirror into the room. I think that I have...
In case, something appears in it and does something.
Yeah, do you know, just to be honest, I wouldn't risk it. You know,
I would not risk it. Just
I-
like I wouldn't risk doing anything with the Ouija board, I wouldn't step into a fairy fort, and I wouldn't bring a mirror into the blood room.
oh my god, my dog just like burst into my room and gave me such a fright there. Oh my god, that's what I hoped to be like.
I just heard a thump and I was like, oh, Sarah.
No, that's my dog bursting in now to tell me he's going to stay here. Well, you can keep me company, Freddie.
Is that room boarded up now? You're not allowed to bring a mirror. I know you can't go in. Or
Yes, you can go into the room. I think you can go in there like to collect your history assignments, or you might have, it might be a waiting area for like waiting to get your stuff back from the professors. But like, I don't think it's like used as such, like
Yeah.
for a main purpose, like a lecture hall. It's not a lecture hall. It's too small to be anything like that, or like an office of somebody. I don't know. I think nobody would be comfortable in a room having a room as your office that is supposed to be a place where 3 people committed suicide.
yeah.
That's disturbing. But that's not the only building in Maynooth to be haunted.
Wow.
I think this one's pretty nice. This is the Aula Maxima, which is the building where like you have your graduation ceremonies, but they also have some of their shows there. So Maynooth Drama Society will have some of their big theatre projects there, and the Musical Society will have that up. But there is the ghost of a dead projectionist. He fell to his death in the 1940s, and he is said to roam the building, but roam the theatre. There is a piano that is sometimes heard playing from outside the building by the security guards. They go into the building and they don't find anyone. There is also a chair that is kept on top of the projection box. The chair, even if it is taken away from the projection box, will somehow always manage to find its way back up there again. This chair is supposed to be where the ghost of our projectionist likes to sit and watch the shows. And in true theatre fashion, if he doesn't like the show, he will turn his chair the opposite direction. I think that's brilliant. I love that. So sassy, like.
Yeah, he's like, nope, none of this, don't like it.
Not for me. Yeah, and I think that's how you would know if your show was good or not, you know, by what the ghost thought. Like he has experience. He's seen a lot of stuff.
That's true. He's seen a lot of shows.
Yeah. So I'd love to know, like,
Any dram sock students or anyone who's had a show or performed there, like anything, or graduation things, like if that's such a big legend they have there, like surely someone has stories about that.
surely somebody does. Like, and I think that's so exciting. Like, so MU Drama Society, if you have any stories, please get in touch. We want to hear them. That's
sauce. I want the ghost sauce.
Yeah. Oh, they say every theater is haunted, so it just gives me satisfaction that like that theater is haunted. You know, that's giving me.
Wow.
That's good.
So they get like two maybe legit ghosts. Well, 2 haunted rooms anyway.
2 haunted rooms. There is a book called The Walking Tour of Ghost Stories of Maynooth College by Joe Byrne and Eric Barclay, and this is kind of a lot of the ghost stories obviously of Maynooth College are in there. I highly recommend reading it for anyone that is interested in finding out a little bit more about it. But I think another kind of, on a lighter note, one of the more kind of famous ends of Maynooth College is not to look at the clock when it is exam season, otherwise you will fail your exams. So
Yeah.
it's unknown. So St. Joseph's Square, it's like Hogwarts. It's like you walk into this big square, you know, this big green area, open green area. There's like all these big old buildings around. There's a clock kind of on top of the building. Isn't that right, in front of you?
Yeah.
It looks like Hogwarts, doesn't it?
It's beautiful, yeah.
But there is a lane. There is a lane that walks down, that is down the center of the green area, that brings you from the main gate straight through to the arch. But there's also like a longer way of going around it on the edges, which takes it much longer. But the whole idea was that the main pathway was for higher ups in society. So for bishops, for the presidents, for lecturers coming in, and students were only meant to walk around the edges. Until one day, there was a student walking up the middle aisle and a bishop coming the opposite direction. He met the bishop and stopped him and asked him for the time. And the bishop was so annoyed at the arrogance of the student that he told him to go and look up at the clock on the clock tower. So the student did, And as the bishop was walking away, he muttered a curse under his breath about the student's stupidity and about the arrogance of talking with somebody that is not his on his
station
level. Yep. And the student then failed his exam. And apparently, this particular student went on to fail every exam he ever took in his life. And that is supposedly the origin of that bad luck kind of thing of do not look at the clock during exam season. Wow. And I know I surely wouldn't.
I wouldn't risk it again.
No, just, yeah, not risking it. I need a pass.
Yeah. And I mean, I can fail my exams easily by myself without cursing myself. So.
There we go. You don't need those curses to add in it.
No.
But yeah, that's it. There is your top 8 haunted universities in Ireland and some dark histories that belong to others. Again, like this is the research that we've had, but like, please, we want to know more. If you are a student or a former student of any of these universities or anyone that we haven't mentioned, please get in contact with us. Send us a message on Instagram, send us one on Facebook, email us. We just kind of want to know, even if it never comes to light about reading out or anything like that, we just want to hear, is there truth in these stories?
And I mean, at least, yeah, as we keep saying, we can do our little part in collecting information and making others aware of stories and experiences and information. Like, this stuff needs to be preserved while we can preserve it, you know? So, yeah. So seriously, if you have a story about any of these campuses, email us at pairofbanshees@gmail.com.
And the fact is, we were looking for folklore and urban legends in modern times, and we couldn't find it. That shows you there is something missing in a society that is not recording its current modern day folklore.
Seriously, I cannot get over this. I thought there would be something on everything, and the amount of stuff we couldn't find. It's mad. But yeah, seriously, let's get recording and saving and documenting and sharing of experiences, you know? I think it's important.
And UCD, you let us down. I couldn't find no ghost story. I never heard no ghost story.
No, and we were there for 3 goddamn years.
No.
In that terrifying basement.
Yeah, just the ghosts of the swans and the ducks that they have eaten. That's it.
That's it, like, and the ghosts of our dreams and high academic hopes.
Yeah, you know? That's where they go to die.
Into the basement.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. We really appreciate the time you've taken out with us. Hopefully we've kind of enlightened your college experience and got you kind of thinking, that corridor, yeah, that's a bit of a spooky one. Let's go down it. So, yeah. Yeah,
or just enlightened you about the history that we do have on some of our campuses right now.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, thank you for listening. I know it's been another long one, so thank you to anyone who gets through our longer episodes. We really appreciate it because we do our research and make these episodes both entertaining and interesting to listen to, you know, riddled with facts and information, as well as just being an entertaining episode, you know? So thank you for always listening. Thank you to those supporting us. And that was A Pair of Banshees with myself, Jenny.
And Sarah.
Yeah, thank you for listening.